Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Just had a great show with Fire Up Florida. We hope to do better, top it, whatever, as we did before. But we had an excellent show. Hope you have an opportunity to watch it on YouTube. But that said, going to talk about the topics real quick. We're going to talk about the Yankees. Talk about the Baltimore Orioles, MLB, the 6 inning minimum. That's interesting. We're going to talk about the LA Angels, and of course, we're going to talk about Max Scherzer. With that said, let me go over the crew here. And we happen to have Eric Katz. Welcome to the show.
Good to be here, Scott. Thank you.
Glad to have you. I'm Ashton Nix. As always, great to have you.
It's always great.
Frank Clark.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you.
Read his stuff. Tell ya, leading winning teams got a book out there. 3-time World Series coach, CEO. Winners find a way. And I got 5 winners on here tonight. All right, George Eichhorn.
I'm a no times winner, Coach. Does that count for anything? I guess.
No worries, George. And last but not least, we got the barber.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
If Joshua Burstein ever does come on, he'll ask you how many haircuts you've given, but he won't look at your hair. But that said, as I told you, introduce the crew. Have a lot of Yankee stuff because Mr. Yankees on here, Mr. Katz. All right, so let's go to it. We have a lot to get to tonight. Let's see. Comparing the Marlins and the Yankees. The team payroll for the Marlins is a whopping $14.7 million. Aaron Judge's salary is $40 million. You think that gets interesting? No problem. The Yankees team payroll is $255 million. Can you believe that Miami/Florida Marlins defeated the Yankees in the 2003 World Series? And more importantly, in that series, okay, the Yankees outscored the Marlins 21-17 in runs scored. But it gets even more interesting. In the Florida State League, Miami Marlins played at the old Miami Stadium, and the Yankees were called the Fort Lauderdale Yankees, Florida State League, and they played at the now demolished Fort Lauderdale Stadium, which now is actually a training facility for Inter Miami. Now, Aaron Judge just recently hit his 1,000th home run. Judge hit the 1,000 hits plateau last month. And I'll tell you one thing, Judge accomplished this feat in a full 132 games quicker than number 2 Ralph Kiner. So with that said, we might as well start off with Eric Katz. I gave you a lot to talk about, but we'll start with the main thing here. And let's just talk about comparing the payrolls, Judge, to the Miami Marlins. And yet, believe it or not, say what you want, the Miami Marlins have won 2 World Series titles in their existence. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, to start off, Scott, have the Marlins done anything in recent years aside from the Mickey Mouse run to the playoffs the past couple of years?
You're asking me? I already know the answer, but go ahead.
Well, they haven't. Well, part of it too is going back. The businesses are different. The Yankees, they became the first team to have their own television network, which obviously the RSN deal is like a real big issue going on in the sport right now. Now the Yankees got Yes Network, I think, in about 2002, where they would control everything, the programming, the rights, the whole deal, and all that money would be generated toward the Yankees, and also later when they partnered with the then New Jersey Nets to form Yankee Nets to have ownership over the network. That's number one. Number two, the New York market is just a world bigger than Miami. It is, like, I believe, the number one media market in the United States. So you have all that attention and all that on you, as well as beat writers, television reporters, whatever else, and all eyes are locked on you. You know, there's going to be quite a bit of money out there. In Miami, you know, baseball, I mean, I think you can probably blame the strike for it, because in '93 when the Marlins first kind of came to be, you know, they were even though they were playing at what was then I think it was called Joe Robbie Stadium at the time.
Right. That's right.
You know, because the stadium has been under many different names over the years. They had a pretty good audience, but you know, when the strike happened, I think that's ultimately what killed it. And then also not having like a quote unquote stadium to use of their own was also hurt them. And then also during the summer, in Florida, you just can't have an outdoor baseball stadium, just given how often it rains and how prevalent thunderstorms are in the area. And then also, I think bad ownership had something to do with it. Like after they won the series in '97, they blew the team up for their first fire sale, and then after they won again. Although they made some good baseball trades, looking back at that blow up. In '03, they won again, and then blew it up, and then also just the ownership with under Jeffrey Loria, which they won a ring, but for the most part, it was pretty bad. And so when you put those two things together, there's just not going to be enough interest.
Well, the bottom line is with this whole thing is the Yankees are worth 200. Their payroll is 255 million. Judge alone is $40 million, and the Marlins 14.7. So who knows what the payroll will be? By the way, I should also mention one thing about the Marlins. I am planning to go back and cover the team next year. So I've had a good working relationship with the Marlins. They've treated me really, really well, and I'm really delighted with the way things have worked out there. So with that said, we'll go to George Eichhorn.
George Acorn says, okay, yes. I mean, you're comparing to me apples and oranges. I mean, yes, it's nothing to be ashamed of. If you got 2 world championships, of course, that's great. But the thing is that the Yankees are just loaded. And every time you put that Yankee jersey on, you will have one thing in mind. You want to be a leader. You want to be a world champion. And unfortunately, we have to go back to 2009, that long ago, since they won their last championship, as you know. And the World Series drought is just incredibly embarrassing, I think, for Yankee fans and brass. This is something that really, really gnaws at them, and I don't blame them because, like I said, you expect to win. When you play for the New York Yankees, you're expecting a championship team. You're expecting, I mean, you can't have perfection, but I'm just saying you want to win the division, but you want to win it all. And Miami, out of the fact that those like you were saying earlier, Eric, those championships were in the past. They have those, and then obviously they imploded and tried to start over several times. But I still like that team. I still like the Marlins. I still think that there's a great future for them. The problem is retaining talent, just like anybody else in Major League Baseball. The Yankees, the Dodgers can write the checks out to these players. Obviously, teams like Miami and other teams like that are not doing that. But the fact of the matter remains that the Yankees, to me, are still the team to beat. The Yankees, okay, the Dodgers also in the National League. But I'm just saying, you always want to do yourself one best and best the Yankees. And nobody can compete to their spending habits.
Okay, well, put the barber in there, Mark.
Yeah, Mark.
Well, from my perspective, it's all about the money. And I think Eric hit the nail on the head in terms of they got all the revenue in New York. Chicago has revenue, Dodgers have revenue, and there is no salary cap. There's no spending floor. As long as you have that, you have complete autonomy about how much you spend. I don't want to hear about the luxury tax. That's a joke. Because if you could spend $200 or $300 million to have your team, you could spend whatever they're going to charge you to have that luxury tax. I agree with George as well in terms of the Yankees are they're the golden standard, and they should be in the running every year. Part of their problem has been like guys like Giancarlo Stanton didn't come through for them. Josh Donaldson at third base when they reached out to get those guys, they weren't the guys that they were acquiring. Okay, they wanted a certain player and they didn't turn out to be that player. As far as the Marlins go, I don't know what to say there because I don't know if that Miami area is truly a baseball area. Mm-hmm. And you cover it, Scott. You would know better than I do. Is the fan base really behind them when they win and lose? I can tell you this much as a Pittsburgh Pirate fan that as much as we complain about them, the fan base is still behind them, win or lose. So that's my piece.
All right. Well, you know what? I'll turn over to Ashton and Trent, and then I'll have the last word on it since I'm a bit more directly. And Ashton, go ahead, please.
Yeah, they're two different teams. The Yankees are a brand, and the Marlins, they have to play the game a different way. If you try to compete with the Yankees in free agency and just paying players, it's not a winning formula for them. I mean, sure, they could spend a little more money on their team. I mean, it's a ridiculous stat when you say Aaron Judge is making more than the entire Marlins team. But you put it in perspective, and the New York Yankees, you don't compare that brand to the Florida or Miami Marlins, wherever they've been.
Right.
It's like, I agree with George. It's comparing apples to oranges. Yeah, since 2000, the Yankees haven't won that much more in terms of championships than the Marlins have, but year in and year out, they're competing, and when they're not competing, it's a huge embarrassment. It's a huge disappointment. For the most part, they're making playoff runs and everything. The Marlins, not so much, and their winning formula is get as much talent as they can in their farm system, win with what they can while they have them, because they're probably not going to re-sign them. They're going to end up trading them to the Yankees or whoever and getting more pieces to grow that farm system. And the occasional time they have a good team and they go out and buy some players to win a championship and to blow it all up. I mean, that's how, they've gotten 2 World Series out of it. So it wins for them, but pretty much they're either winning the World Series or not competing at all. And then occasionally will make your, as Eric said, your Mickey Mouse playoff run.
Okay. Go ahead, Trent.
Yeah, for me, it's the Marlins have had a lot of success for a team that seems to be down in the tank right now, and teams go through this. I think the Florida market is really interesting for baseball. It's always been a great spring training facility, but everybody's a transplant. They've already got a team. They don't see the Marlins as their team. They don't see the Devil Rays as their team. Everybody moves down to Florida from somewhere else. There's just not that many homegrown. Baseball's hotter than blazes down there, June, July, August, in the heat of it, central season. So, you're not seeing people go out to the ball games, especially outdoor games. It's crazy.
Right.
They've done a great job of trying to get better facilities. I think the luxury tax the Yankees are playing is probably more than the Marlins, total salary, which is crazy.
Right.
And the Yankees are the standard right there. For a long time they've been. They proved they could do it. They beat the Yankees in the 2003 World Series. They beat the mighty Tribe, in 97 when I was there. And they put teams together and been able to create a winner. I think this is why I love relegation. I love the idea of promotion and relegation. If teams don't want to spend the money and they can't afford it, then get out. Go to the lower level league and try to regroup, because the fans deserve a little better, I think. And I think it would open up great things for Louisville and Nashville and just all those great towns, right? And I think it'd be very interesting to see how it could play. It would be a ton of fun to me. And by the way, even the Yankees aren't immune. You can spend a ton of money and still finish in last. Injuries are real, and you can go down into a tank. And now, just like the English soccer teams, you don't see that happening to Man United, Man City, Arsenal, the teams that are standards in that league. They're not dropping below into that lower tier and at facing relegation. So, and I'd argue with the markets, because I think you're right, but LA, the Dodgers do have money. The Angels don't. It's Orange County. They've tried to change their name to be LA Angels. I don't know if it's really worked to get that share. You gotta put a good product on the field to get the draw, right? And I think Chicago's a great example right now. Where are the White Sox? That's a big market, and it's all the media market, but the White Sox aren't anywhere to be found. So, I think there's just real challenges in it. And one of the things that I've seen from my transition from pro ball into entrepreneurship business is that this is a business. And if people are going to run it like a hobby, you've got very good business people. Wayne Huizenga had a great run as a business person and a sports owner in the Miami area. And, running it like a business becomes a really big deal. And if you don't run it the right way, I think you end up in relegation, and it'd be great, in my opinion.
Okay, I'll make my answer, if it's even possible, as short as can be. Number one, Lone Depot Park is a beautiful facility. It really is a beautiful baseball facility. That's item number one. Okay. Item number two, when the Yankees do go down there and play the Marlins got 100,000 people to go over there, and they're sending some nice crowds, so they can thank the Yankees in terms of draw. I know they play the Mets like 7 times a year. Mets do decent, but when you bring the Yankees to town with the Marlins, it's really good. You guys are all over it, and every one of you is right in the ballpark, pun intended. Number one, Lone Depot Park is in the wrong area, period. They should have built a stadium right on the site of Joe Robbie Stadium, and that would have enabled the Marlins to be more accessible to Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County. Instead, they got a sweet deal in Miami, thanks to Jeffrey Loria. There's no way they're moving. I can tell you that right now, Trent, because the city got hosed in that deal by Jeffrey Loria, so they're going to be staying there no matter what. But location is everything. Yes, they needed a dome or retractable stadium because you can't watch baseball in this area unless you're able to go out there and make sure that you have a game every night. Candy Ebling has said many, many times, okay, if the Brewers didn't have Miller Park and it was a retractable with the weather up there, they'd be in trouble. They wouldn't be able to know if they can come to a game or not. So the Marlins got it right on the stadium. The only problem is they got it wrong on the area. Humidity and rain delays. I'm going to tell you, I dealt with it when I covered the Fort Lauderdale Yankees and the Miami Marlins here locally. And I can tell you how many times I stayed out there 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. It wasn't drinking. If it was drinking Coke at the time. And it wasn't easy to cover those games when they're being delayed for hours and hours. It's one thing to have pace of play, but there's no way to. Mother Nature always wins. And that's why I wanted to bring this topic on here, because the difference in the salaries between Judge and the payroll, while they are substantial, the one thing we have to understand is Marlins good stadium, wrong area. They chose to market to the Hispanic market, which is in Little Havana. Well, and I understand they have a really big international base. And if you go to the World Baseball Classic, you'll fill that place, because I'll tell you one thing, the internationals will buy tickets to see their people. But as far as the Marlins are concerned, you know what? I'm very grateful for the way they've treated me. They've treated me really well. And for me being at this point in my career, to be able to cover baseball with people that want me there, I have no problem. Don Mattingly did everything that he could for this franchise, probably the all-time winningest manager. Fortunately, probably lost more games too, but he did everything he could. Skip Schumacher's on the last few weeks, but that'll be for another show. All right, well, I wanted to get this topic out of the way first, because I knew there would be a wide range of opinions. It does get a little bit simpler as we progress. Next, okay, the Baltimore Orioles have called up Jackson Holliday in July. Okay, here's what makes this interesting. He was initially called up and was 1 for 30 to start his career with a 33 batting average and 1.7 OPS. Are the lowest through a player, in his first 9 games, with a minimum of 30 at bats since Gary DiSarcina in 1990. Now, the good news about Holliday is he's doing a bit better. He has a 176 average with 159 at bats, 5 home runs, 21 RBIs, and he is a shortstop second baseman. Let's face it, sometimes it takes some players to acclimate. The kid didn't lose his confidence, and he played 9 games. They sent him back to the minors, and I think he'll be an excellent player going forward. So, you know what, Trent, you coach in this game. So why don't you talk about Jackson Holliday and what lies ahead, and the fact that he did take a break from Major League Ball. Not a great start, but let's see if you can, when you identify the upside of this kid.
Yeah, I think the break did him really well. I mean, you go and you find out, you get a cup of coffee. Same thing with Gary DiSarcina, by the way. I coached him in the Angels organization, and Gary was a great shortstop for a lot of years. Did a very solid job for the Angels. Never a big offensive player, so it doesn't surprise me those stats. I think Jackson's going to be fine in the long run. I think it's a great year. Rookie of the year probably out when you're not hitting your weight. Your rookie of the year is probably safe that you're not going to get that. But I also know the longtime great Derek Jeter, what he set the record for the New York Penn League for errors his first year in pro ball. I mean, guys got to adjust and make it, and good athletes will. And Jackson Holliday's a great athlete. He's going to be fine.
Okay. George?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is something that I too speak highly of him. He's got a good pedigree. He's a good kid. It's not easy coming up and performing right away. Trust me, I see it here with Detroit and some of their prospects, especially Spencer Torkelson and what happened to him earlier this season. But Jackson Holliday, oh gosh, you need good second basemen. You need good infielders. He's got a lot of potential. He's real young, obviously, taken in the 2022 June amateur draft. The Orioles are sitting there with him. In fact, ironically, he was the one that the pundits, I call them, here in Detroit, when they were ready to give away on Tarek Skubal, they said that, that's the number one guy that Detroit should get would be Jackson Holliday. So there was a lot of talk about Jackson and his future here in the Motor City, only because, when the trading deadline was coming up, a lot of people wanted Skubal traded, which I think is silly, and they wisely kept him. But no, I'm still high on him. I think Jackson will do good. It's just it's a tough situation. You've been through it, Coach Trent. You've seen this, and you know how tough a grind it is, and making that movement, huge movement from the minors to the majors is big. So I'm still very high on him, Scott.
Okay, we'll turn over to Ashton.
I mean, he's 20 years old. Most players aren't even sniffing the majors at 20 years old. He came in, it didn't work. Like you said, 1 for 30. Went back down, figured some things out, corrected some things, or whatever. It came out hot, like completely different players. Cooled down some, but I think his numbers will even out over the long run. He's going to be a great player. It's all about how he reacts to this. And, like Trent had mentioned that, how Jeter did his rookie year and he was able to correct it and move on. Some players, whether it's a mentality, whatever it is, aren't able to overcome things like that. It looks like Holliday is able to come through those things. And that's why I think he's going to be a great player in the long run.
All right, Mark.
I think they rushed to get that kid up. Their whole system is loaded with players. There's other kids who were ready to come up and be contributors because they worked their way through the system. I'm not sure why they did that. That's the first time I've really seen them have a hiccup with a player in quite some time. And, yes, he will pan out. He's going to be a great player. There were more than Detroit, George, that he was talked about in several different places. They were dangling Jared Jones from the Pirates, who was having an outstanding rookie year, to Baltimore because they needed pitching. And Jackson was the name that they were throwing around there. So, whether the Orioles get it right or get it wrong, they need to be patient with that kid. He's 20 years old.
Eric?
I think that, number one, I thought they kind of rushed him, which, that's kind of out of character of Baltimore, because I think Trent can attest to this, just being that he's been around teams day to day in a more deeper, intimate level than all of us ever will. I think the pressure was there just because he was the number one prospect in baseball up to that point to bring him up, even though they had guys like, I don't know, Kyle Stowers was around at that point. Connor Norby, who's kind of ripping it up with the Marlins now, probably could have made a bigger impact than Jackson did. But there is a world of difference between minor league baseball and the major leagues. It is just different. I mean, you're going up against a team's best the best in the world day in and day out. He's neither the first nor the last hot shot rookie to get sent down. We can go as far back as the 50s when Mickey Mantle, in the theme of the Yankees tonight, we can go that far back as far as the 50s when Mickey Mantle was sent down, or even Willie Mays was even sent down, and they ended up having Hall of Fame careers. It's just, unfortunately, it's just growing pains in the league. I mean, sure, you don't have to be a rookie of the year in order to have a great career. I think that's what people don't understand. We've seen plenty of players who get rookie of the year and all of a sudden fizzle out because talent, I think Trent can attest to this, talent development is not linear. Again, I think he's going to be a great player. He came back with a vengeance. Yeah, he's cooled off some, But hey, Gunnar Henderson struggled when he first came up too, and also I don't think Adley did, but I'm sure Adley had his rookie moments as well. But there's plenty of guys in this league now who struggled. Even Jackson Chourio on the Brewers struggled. So it's common to go through the growing pains. It's like, I think Bull Durham talks about it well, where you're going to get hit around for a little while. It's just part of the game. Even if you come on hot, this league will figure you out very quickly. They will find something, and you won't even be able to hit the back of a barn door. But again, he's going to have a great career. He's a stud, too talented, has a level head. He will be just fine.
All right. You guys are all on target. Having worked with Don Mattingly, and he's now a good friend of mine, okay? I say a good friend of mine. Don Mattingly and I used to have a lot of private conversations, and we did the media availabilities as Miami set them up, right? He used to tell me every single time, Scott, AAA and Major Leagues are a way different animal. These guys are going to hit their way in, and they're going to not hit their way out. It's how they adjust to the next level, because like Eric and every one of you guys pointed out, okay, that MLB is the most humbling league out of all four major sports. I said humbling, because we all know the one thing about baseball is if you end up doing well 1 out of 3 times, you're probably going to make more money than Steph Curry. Well, maybe not, but you're making a lot of money. But that's what Don used to tell me. He said, you know what? That's all there is to it. You have to get used to Major League hitting, and these are men. They'll figure you out. The kid's 20 years old, so he's unflappable anyways. And I think Baltimore wanted to see where he was, and they decided to bring him up. So everything he's getting, I don't think the kid's really worried about winning Rookie of the Year at this point. Just stay in the big leagues, absorb as much experience as you can, come back better for spring training, and be able to be a factor next year, because you don't know what the roster turnover is going to be going into the offseason with payroll situations. I normally don't go back to people, but sometimes I want to go back to you, Trent, on this, okay, since you coach in the big leagues. So did you deal with a lot of these type of situations where younger players were brought up premature? And if you did, how did you coach them what did you tell them when they were in the big leagues that you're here, but you could be sent down? Go ahead, Trent.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. I think it happens in every organization. People think they're ready, and they're not ready mentally, emotionally, even morally, right? It's a real challenge. And I think we all agree. We were 20 years old. Like, we weren't ready for much, right? Let alone the kind of stress and pressure. I know Holliday, I think he's the son of a major leaguer, right? So he's been around the ballparks. I mean, he kind of knows what he's getting into. And so I think that's going to be a part of it that's going to bring him through. But I agree with Don Mattingly 100%. I mean, there's 3A and there's the major leagues, and it's a big chasm. And a lot of players are labeled 4A, right? They are players that unfortunately we label them as coaches as 4A. Guys that can absolutely just wrecking crew at the AAA level, but can't make that Mendoza line at the major league level. And, they get trapped and they call them 4A because, they're not serviceable enough at the major leagues. And yet they continue to just drop back into that AAA roster, dominate all-star games, home runs. And, and I wonder how much it's physical, which is a lot. But definitely mental and the preparation there, I think, is a bigger deal. It's usually between the ears.
Okay, we're going to get Candy Embley for a station break.
Hello.
And in the eyes of Johnny Carson, here's Katie. Anybody remember Johnny Carson?
I know.
Hello, everybody.
That was Ed McMahon that said it.
Yeah, he did well, didn't
So, the South Florida Tribune published a book last November. It is called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by your host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. And George wrote the foreword. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Apple and Google Books. Get your copy today. You can also find a link on www.southfloridatribune.com. There's a link to that book. There's a link to our online store, and there's all kinds of great content on there, including articles from George and Scott, pictures that I've taken. There's a link to our merchandise store, his book, all good content. Go check it out. If you see the red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner, click it, like us, share us with all your friends and family. Get notifications when we're doing broadcasts. Before this broadcast tonight, we did Fire Up Florida, which talks about hockey. We're talking baseball right now. Inside the Pigskin, football talk is tomorrow night. Sports Exchange is Wednesday night, and Fire Up is Thursday night. You never know what we're going to be talking about on either of those. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can go wherever you get your podcasts. You can grab a listen. Any of our shows and all of them are on there. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, call Scott 954-304-4941. If I missed anything, you can either hit rewind and listen again, or it's scrolling along the bottom. Back to our regular program. Scott.
Thanks, Candy. What I need you to do is Harvey Bernstein went out there and asked if the Heat signed Aaron Medley. Maybe you can find that information. We get it over to Harvey, since we like to educate. Even though we're talking baseball tonight, we've certainly, if there's any sport comments or news that people want to know, we'll be more than happy to get that with you, Harvey. So bear with us. All right. Well, a team that Trent's all too familiar with, okay, the LA Angels' 9th straight losing season is the longest active streak in MLB. Well, you know what, Mr. Clark? It's time for you to give us the inside workings of the Angels. And let's face it, really, you and I both have ties to the Angels. Tim Meade is certainly one of my best friends over there. And the Angels, every time I've been at spring training, have always treated me really great. So what are your thoughts, Trent, about the Angels? 9 straight years. Is it the curse of Mike Scioscia?
That's a good theory. Certainly, the organization felt a little cursed when I arrived in '99. It was not an organization used to being a winner, known for a famous playoff debacle, right? The home run that was in the 1-game playoff, and unfortunately, a suicide. And I mean, there's just a lot of things when people looked at that storied franchise. Yet there's so many good things, right? You got the Cowboy owner. Everybody loved him. And so it's this storied franchise that really has never found its kind of place. And man, I was really there in the heyday, right? Scioscia took over in 2000. I was already there in 99. And he really set the system and gave it a vision, gave it a North Star of where we were going, and brought in some people that knew how to drive and get to that North Star. And, mission accomplished. 02, right? 05, thought we were going again. I mean, mighty White Sox came in and kind of blitzkrieged us there at the end in the American League Championship. But those were very competitive years with depth, with good baseball, good business, a lot of things going the right way. And I think organizations don't go running away what's from right. I think they drift, right? You bring in a couple people with some different ideas, and hey, different's better. And there's a little there's a little drift in there about going the right direction. And I think the old adage of you catch a plane in LA headed for New York, and you're 1 degree off, you land in DC, right? The drift is real over time, and I just think no one's ever caught the drift of the Angels, and they're going out to sea. And it's concerning. It's alarming. It's a great place for baseball. It's Southern California. They love it, but you got to win. You got to win to draw fans. And man, no one's inspired by 9 straight losing seasons. And I thought bringing Joe Madden was going to turn this around, and didn't keep him. So don't know what happened there, but certainly I thought they were headed in the right direction. But every time I think they are, it turns.
Well, the Cowboy owner that you're referring to, by the way, is Gene Autry. Okay.
Actor.
Yeah.
There you go, Gene Autry. So Archer Marino was running it. With that said, George Eichhorn.
Well, I'll tell you a quick Gene Autry story. So I covered the 50th anniversary MLB All-Star game at Comiskey Park in Chicago. and I had my camera along because they didn't allow me to bring a photographer. So I had a camera, and who did I see? Joe DiMaggio talking to Gene Autry, one of the most greatest pictures, greatest opportunities I ever saw. That was back in 1982, I believe. Yeah, I mean, you've had some great people in that franchise history, Jim Fregosi, you mentioned John Madden, Bill Rigney, Rod Carew. I mean, and of course, the great Trout. It's just a shame right now. They used to be like third, fourth, fifth in attendance, sixth a few times. You know where they are now? 13th. The last several years they've been either 12th or 13th in total attendance for the season. And you're talking about from Southern California. We're not talking about a mid-sized market here. We're talking about the LA Angels. And I know the competition just a little more than a stone's throw away. The Dodgers is tough on them, but they have got to turn this thing around somehow. They spent so much money on so many of those teams. And, we laughed or you joked a little bit about Scioscia. Scioscia's a great manager. I always liked my Scioscia. I thought that was a guy that would be there forever. But Rod Washington, and again, another good guy, Ron, he is a good, solid man and a good manager. I know that because, the Tigers had to do battle with him and the Rangers back in the early 2010s. So I tell you what, I still think that Washington can get it done, but they've got to turn this thing around. They got to build that farm system up and get good drafting and good trades because they're too big a franchise to be down for so long like they are.
If anybody's familiar with Ron Washington, Ashton Nix is.
Yeah.
Great
Right,
baseball man.
Ashton?
Yeah, for sure.
Great
So
baseball
tell me your
man.
thoughts about this whole thing, Ashton.
I mean, it has been a shame because it is really a good organization, even if it is, playing second fiddle to the Dodgers there in LA. But I mean, a lot of reasons, for them being, their ninth straight losing season. They've played bad at home, especially this season. Haven't been able to really develop pitching. Of course, Mike Trout's always injured. I know it's not, it's not like other sports where one player can make that huge of a difference, but it does make a difference. Lopsided spending and really inconsistent spending. I mean, they'll pay Mike Trout, but and pay other players, but sometimes they don't. And it's just interesting. I guess you could say go as far as mismanaging the organization as much as I like what Trent said. They're just on a drift, and sometimes you overreact and try to fix it and overcorrect, and it just doesn't work out well.
Okay, let's turn over to Mark.
I'm not sure what's going on there, though, because let's face it, they had Ohtani and Mike Trout at the same time. And
Right.
they went out and they tried to acquire some pitching to help out there, too. I mean, what is it? You got to ask yourself, what is it? Is it the pipeline coming up to support those guys? It just doesn't make any sense to me that they can't be productive. Now, George, you said they had 13th best attendance in the league. Well, there's a lot of teams behind them, so they're still drawing people. They're still drawing people, and they're still making a lot of money there. Where are they investing their money to make this organization better? That's what you have to ask yourself.
Right.
Are they developing these guys in the minors to come up and support the guys who are at the major league level? And of course, Mike Trout is a stud, but he's always hurt. So I think you do need to take a look at who's in charge of running the minor league part of this organization, who's in charge of the scouting. Are they bringing in the right guys? Is it uniform across the organization in terms of how guys are getting developed to go to the next level? Whether it be at rookie ball or moving up to high A, low, whatever. So, I mean, the organization needs a reshuffle and a direction.
So, Eric, would you say the general manager is to blame for the Angels' issues?
No,
Okay.
I would say it's Artie Moreno. Artie
Okay.
Moreno has had multiple general managers working for him, and the guy's just incredibly hard to work with. He won't let it. He's a known meddler. He won't let his people do their jobs. I mean, I think the problems began when Jerry Dipoto took over there and they went out and went on a spending spree and went after guys like Albert Pujols, Josh Hamilton, CJ Wilson when he was like one of the best pitchers in baseball at that point in time. But it goes back to this team is just directionless. They just cannot. At one point, the Angels, but early 2000s when Social was the manager, they would have an all-star here and there, but you had a team full of good ball players, kind of like very almost New England Patriot-like, if you will. They worked hard. They did what they had to do to win. They weren't like, you had Troy Glaus, Garrett Anderson, people like that. But, they worked hard. They were, for a while there, they had the Yankees number for a while. And they, up until I think 2009, but they were a tough out. I mean, even the White Sox even had their problems with them in 05, and it took AJ Przinsky running down the line on what either was on controversially a drop third strike rule, which I don't think it was, and to turn that series around. But they were a tough team. But now the team is directionless. I mean, it doesn't help that they signed Anthony Rendon, but who was like the top free agent at that point in time, and but now he's cashed in and is always hurt, and judging by his interviews, he really doesn't want to. I don't think he really should be on a major league roster. But that being said, the team has no direction. Ari Moreno doesn't let his general managers do their job, which I'm surprised Perry stayed. But I think he stayed though because he managed to get some kind of audience with Ari Moreno, and I think he could turn it around. But man, they got to stop dumping their players in their farm system, because right now they got nothing coming up, and they've got a very long rebuild ahead, and I think it'll be another 10 years at least before they're contending again.
I wish Ron Washington well. It sounds like the Angels are spending money. It just seems like they're spending it in the wrong places to me, and I'll leave it at that. So, okay, now in July, Max Scherzer passed Greg Maddux on the all-time strikeout list. Max, at the time when he passed him, had 3,372, and Greg Maddux had 3,371. So we're going to start off with you, Ashton. What do you think Max Scherzer's legacy is in MLB?
For sure, a Hall of Famer. I mean, he's going to go down as one of the great pitchers. He's won a couple of different World Series, and obviously the fact that he has two different eye colors is kind of weird when you see it too. Here for the Rangers, it hadn't been gone as well as you would like it to. I mean, he's only started 16 games total for in the year and a half they've had him. This year he's 2-4, 3.89 ERA. He's just pitched almost 39 and a third innings. Just dealing with injury and, being 40. I know he said he wants to pitch in 2025. Contract's up here. I don't think he's going to play for the Rangers. I'm not sure who he'll be able to play for. But yeah, I don't think the Rangers are going to re-sign him, but it's kind of, it happens when you play that long and you play into your 40s. You're going to see yourself deteriorate, and it's unfortunate because he's had such a great career that it seems to be going like this. I hope he does play next season, whoever it's for, and that he kind of rejuvenates his career a little bit and can kind of go out on a high note.
Go to Eric.
I mean, Mad Max. That's a Hall of Famer right there. I mean, he's as tough as they come. He's helped multiple he's helped multiple teams go to the postseason. He's won a couple World Series rings. One of them with Washington, and the other one, obviously, even though he didn't really pitch, it was with the Texas Rangers. But either way, though, he was a part of that team. But that's a Hall of Famer. I mean, he's hardworking. He's very competitive. He's a tough guy to face because of what he's going to throw at you. I mean, the guy can go 1 minute throwing 97 plus to making you look stupid on a Bugs Bunny changeup. But tough pitcher. The guy's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He deserves everything. Yes, he wants to pitch in 25, but hopefully he does, because the league is definitely better when he's out there competing. And I have no doubt that when it's all said and done, he will be in the Hall of Fame.
George?
Well, when Dave Dombrowski was calling the shots for the Detroit Tigers, of course, I had a chance to cover Max in those great years that he spent in Detroit from 2010 to 2014. And you guys have nailed it. He's a competitor. He's a great guy. He is a smart player. He dazzles you with different pitching, different pitches, 216 career wins. Obviously, we don't see pitchers anymore that are going to get 300. The old days, you had to have 300 or close to it to get into the Hall of Fame. No question about it. I agree with my colleagues here. He's going to make it. 8-time All-Star, 2-time World Series champ, 3-time Cy Young Award winner, 2 no-hitters. I mean, the list goes on and on. I wish that I'm hoping that this isn't the end, though. I mean, he's really, really had a tough go of it, just like Justin Verlander has in the last year or two because of injuries and that. But I really think Mad Max deserves a shot. I know he really wants to go out on a high note, but Father Time is catching up with him right now. He's already 40 years old, so he has nothing else in my mind to prove. 3,405 strikeouts, unbelievable. Yep, yeah, for sure, a great Hall of Famer to me as well.
Good update. Thanks, George. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll turn over to Barber.
I mean, these guys have hit on every possible thing there is to say about the guy. Hall of Famer. He's been a consummate professional. I do think he's stretching himself a little bit now. There is a time he needs to look in the mirror and say, okay, I've done all that I can. If he wants to give back to the game, give back as a coach, develop young guys. You don't have to still take the mound to be a contributor to an organization. And he needs to take that perspective into consideration at this point. I mean, it's very rare that a 40-year-old today is extremely productive. And it's hard to walk away. I get that piece. I mean, it makes sense to me. But, there's nothing better than, giving back after you've done it as a player than giving back as a coach and watching those young guys develop under you, especially when you're going to have your plaque up at Cooperstown someday. And Scott and I will go check it out.
No, we'll check it out. We'll do a show there. What are you talking about? We did one there before. We'll do it again. So good, great stuff. Now, not everybody said everything. You're the only one that brought up the coaching part. Good stuff, MM. All right, Coach Clark.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think you're right. We've hit it. He's a veteran, and I watched Hershiser come back, do it in his late 30s. I think Greg Maddux made $10 million when he was 40. Like, he was on a pretty sizable contract still in San Diego. I don't know how many strikeouts he had those last 3 or 4 years to add to that list, because we know the majority of them were back in his 20s and early 30s, but he was still getting guys out. I do believe, we talk about a team. This is where a Max Scherzer could have, great value to a Marlins team out of the 4th or 5th starting spot. He's like a player coach, developing some young talent, because they're developing players at that level, which is hard. You don't do development at the major leagues unless you're in a program in demise, right? And so, but if you've got that situation, I wonder if there's a place he can fit for that. But the health thing is really the big deal. Like, Maddox stayed healthy. And as a power guy, we talked about Frank Tanana a few weeks ago on the show, and a guy who really adjusted his game. Certainly our Michigan man, Mr. Smoltz, adjusted his game to be a closer, doing it a different way. I don't know if that's in Max's future, but I think you got to consider all things, because there's no doubt he's a consummate professional. There's no doubt he's prepared. There's no doubt he could help some other kids learn how to prepare for what's about to happen physically, mentally, morally, emotionally. He's a guy who's always had it all together. So many young players could learn from him. That would be a massive value, and it'd be great for him to walk away with a 8 or 10 win season out of a 4 or 5 slot.
Well, I'll repeat myself again. I look for the day that Mark Maraday and I can go out there and do a show from Max's plaque. Any of you guys want to come on, feel free to make your way to Cooperstown. You can fly out of Albany just in case you haven't been there. I drove the last time, so go figure. All right, the topic I decided to wait till last, and Trent, you're going to lead it off, okay? Is MLB has discussed adding a 6-inning minimum for starting pitchers. And the guy that is a strength and conditioning coach, Trent, okay, what are your thoughts about the idea?
I don't understand how it works, man. I mean, you go out there and you get shell shocked in the second inning. What are you supposed to do? Just stick in there for 6 innings? We're gonna have like 35-run games. You know, if someone's got to go out there and stay for 6 or 7 innings that are not having a night, not right, you're gonna have everyone claiming injury if that's the only way out. You know, you got all sorts of issues with this thing. You know, this is to me a symptom of a little bit what's underlying all the things we've talked about today. You know, statistics are starting to run the game, right? And you've got bean counters, you've got these, you know, all these things going on in the background. You got kids out of MIT, they don't really understand the game, but boy, they really get the stats. I think that's awesome. I think stats are really important. I think they're really good, but I think that everything's weighted, right? And we got to weight these things. And I think some of these things get in, and I think it's happened. And we talked about, you know, the Angels. I don't know if that's been a part of how leadership's lost its way, is like, oh, let's just play off the stats and sign players off stats of what they were 3 years ago. I don't know how many times we had conversations about players in these coaches' room going, man, let's sign this guy. He was so good in 2021. And I'm like, holy cow, we're going into the 2025 season. What are you talking about? 2021? That was 4 years ago. And it's like, man, this is a what have you done for me lately kind of organization and kind of game. And you've got to stay relevant right now. And I do not understand how this rule will possibly help the game in any way. I'm trying to understand it.
Okay. Well, that's why I started with you, okay? Because now it's Ashton Nick's turn to see if he can make some sense out of this.
Please, Ashton, make some sense of it, brother.
No pressure. I think it's all about money. And I mean, you can make an argument that when you decide what games you want to go to and attend and watch on TV, it matters who the starting pitcher is. And when you have a star pitcher that goes in there and then they take him out for whatever reason after a couple of innings, that might hit, that might hit the wallet a little bit. I mean, it's the same thing with the pitch count or the pitch clock, that they're trying to get younger viewers to stay entertained, I guess. I mean, it's worked out. It hadn't been as bad as most people have thought it was, but I'm not a huge fan of it. And, I'm one of the young fans they're, kind of talking about trying to keep into the game. And I think I heard some rules like that they can take him out, like you said, injury, but they have to go on the IL if they do that. You can't just say, oh, he has soreness. And then I think there was, if he gave up a certain amount of earned runs or something, they could take him out. But on paper, I guess it kind of makes sense. Because we always complain like, hey, they're not, pitching like they used to. Nolan Ryan would go pitch just about, every all 9 innings every game. But times are different, and for better or for worse, this is, how the game is changing. The game's always evolved in the, 120 plus years it's been around. And I think now, because they rely so much on TV ratings and attendance and things like that, that they actually have to put rules in place to keep it from changing too much.
Well said. I like that. All right, Eric.
I think, well, number one, it's not going to happen because the Players Association is going to laugh it right out of the room. And I think, Rob Manfred's had some pretty bad ideas. I'm telling you, this one's probably his rock bottom worst idea ever. I think, number one, the game is just changing. You have to go along with the times. The openers become a thing. I mean, sure, you can say, oh, it's all about the start. No, you look. Teams will do anything. It's a copycat league. If it works for one team, another team's going to try and make it work for the other. I think that number one, I don't know how you're going to execute it with a pitcher getting shelled. I think you're going to have to throw some caveats in there because you're asking for that pitcher to lose. Number two, oh, you're going to make an excuse for injury. Well, If he's not really hurt, what are you going to do? Phantom IL it, which has become a problem in the league these days. You're just opening up a Pandora's box for issues. The Players Association is never going to go for it because anything pertaining to health of pitchers, which has become more of a crisis these days than ever in the league. Anything that even remotely will affect a player's health, the Players Association is not going to go for it. Rob Manfred should know that, and I'm pretty sure he won't get any owners on his side either because ultimately the owners are investing in these guys. You think the owner of the Texas Rangers was uncomfortable watching trainers go out to the mound whenever Jacob deGrom was pitching? These guys have millions of dollars invested in these guys. They will never go for it. It's just, if the guy doesn't have it that day, like we've seen plenty of pitchers this year, 2 innings, they don't have it. They get hit hard. It happens. It's just a part of the deal where you just don't have it that day. I mean, it happens to everybody. It happened to Nolan Ryan too. But, it's not going to happen. There's just too many risks that go with it. Given the arm injuries these days, it's going to just lead to more problems, and the Players Association is going to tell Rob Manfred to leave. It's going to happen. It's just not going to happen. It's a laughable idea, to be truthful.
All right. Well, you know what, Mark? Aren't you glad you're following Eric on this topic?
He's right. It's not going to happen. I mean, take a look at the arm injuries we had this year from the guys pitching, and it's impacted the game. How many guys that were top-notch pitchers the last few years are not even pitching this year because they've had arm injuries? Imagine what would happen if you forced these guys to do this. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. It's not a well thought out, even proposal that's put on the floor. What are you going to do? Expand your roster so that you have a ton more pitchers in case somebody goes down? I mean, you're right. The Players Association is never going to agree to this. It's just not. It comes down to health, and it comes down to longevity for some of these guys. Some of these guys need to be around for a while to make their money, and if they blow their arm out, that's a wrap.
George?
Yeah, for me, it's a non-starter. I mean, here we are. We got joint no-hitters and this stuff going on. Give us the day when a starter can go longer than 5 innings, okay? Not mandatory, though. No way, because like Trent said, I mean, there's going to be a lot of putting players on injured lists and having to run through that and trying to keep track of who's in and who's out, and this is craziness. And I agree with you guys, all of you, that the Players Union, no way they're going to go for this. I don't like this idea at all. I do like the old days, sure. I mean, when pitchers stayed in the game much longer, the starters, that is. But, even here in Detroit, we lost Reese Olson, we had Casey Mize. I mean, pitcher after pitcher, starter after starter went down with injuries this year. And it happens all around. Every team in the league can say the same thing. But this, I'm sorry, is wrong. This is not going to be a fix. This is not going to be, in my mind, making the game any better.
Well, you know what? I'm all for complete games. I really, really am. I don't know if this is the way to do it, but I would like to see pitchers go deeper. I really would. How many times have you seen a guy pulled after 7, 8 innings when he could have easily have gone 9? Give me a break, people. And complete games is what Major League Baseball is missing. All these managers that are pulling them out after 80, 90 pitches. I'd like to see pitch counts go up to 130, 140 if you get closer to the complete game. Whether it'll happen or not is another story, but I still would like to see it. The one rule that was added that I liked was the 3-batter minimum, mainly because once upon a time, closers used to go 2 or 3 innings. So what's the difference if you got 3 batters and move on to someone else? So I was intrigued about the 6-inning minimum, which is why I wanted it to be talked amongst all of you tonight, because I knew I was going to get opinions a lot of different ways to do it. And it obviously worked because I've been going last, listen to every one of you, okay? And every one of you here, this crew, gave something different, and that's what this is all about, okay? And I think that when you have a topic which is wide open, because this one really is, if they're trying to send a message to managers, okay, we want to get closer to complete games, does this make a little sense? Yeah, but I don't think it'll happen. And like Eric said, okay, maybe they need to have some sort of caveats, or you need to fine tune the rule for certain consideration, even think you could sell it to anybody. So there's a lot of things that you would have to go ahead and add to it, other than rule change 6 inning minimum. But I don't know about you guys, but I miss complete games, and I think sometimes the pitch counts are way too short, not enough pitches, and I miss a regular no hitter. I still haven't adapted in my mind. Okay, a combined no hitter. I struggle with it myself, whether or not it's a legitimate no hitter, but it will be counted as one as well. I want to address one guy in the chat room. Harvey Bursey did the heat sign. Aaron Medley. You know what, Harvey? Candy's looking it up. She can't find the information. So, as much as we'd like to give it to you right now, she's been researching it hard, but we didn't want to forget about you as well. So, so that's where I'm at. Bring back complete games. That's what you have. Because the one thing that what people don't realize, that every time you have a complete game, especially in this era potentially, is you give your bullpen a night off.
Mm-hmm.
There is no crime giving the bullpen a night off.
Yes.
Roy Halladay used to throw him, and he's a guy that could have made it in any era. I'll bet there's a bunch of other pitchers, and I don't have time to get into, that could have done it. But
Alcantara.
Yeah, I think that unfortunately for the Marlins he went down, but Don Mattingly pitched him deep. I don't think Don ever expected Sandy would have some arm issues, but Sandy could go, and he wanted to stay in. He's a bulldog. I've watched him pitch a lot being here in this market. So, but I was intrigued when I saw it. That's why I thought we'd talk about it tonight. And every one of you guys did exactly what I expected you to do. And I'm proud of every last one of you for coming up with some sort of a different viewpoint on a subject, which I know we haven't heard the last of. All right. With that said, I want to point out a couple of news notes here. Unfortunately, we lost James Earl Jones today at the age of 93. Many of us know that James Earl Jones went ahead and did The Lion King, Field of Dreams. And he also did Star Trek. I actually had an opportunity to sit next to James Earl Jones during the Mike Tyson Evander Holyfield fight, the first one. Okay. And he was a really super nice guy. Now, when I bought the second one, my ex-wife's suit for $50, I'm surprised that my ex-wife didn't chop my head off, because she was with me at the first one. And James Earl Jones was great. But, Field of Dreams, if you've ever gone out there and been to that site, go out there and do it. It's a great place. We all know what he did on The Lion King, and I haven't watched Star Wars, whether you know or not. Probably the only person on the planet that hasn't. But they say he went out there and played Darth Vader. Another loss today was Ed Kranepool of the New York Mets. Mm-hmm. He passed away as well. So do you guys have any comments about either of the two? And then I'm going to give everybody a parting shot real quick.
Don't forget about The Sandlot of James Earl Jones. Come on, man. Another great baseball movie, right?
Okay. Well, I ain't going to forget about it now because you brought it up. Good stuff.
Yeah, James Earl Jones, man, a classic. Sad day.
Died at the age of 93. Rest in peace, James Earl Jones. And I wish I would have had a camera phone or some sort of a camera, knowing I got to sit next to you. Don't know if I got his autograph or did where it is, but just the memories I have of him watching Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield in Las Vegas, a fight that went 11 rounds. That was just neat to hang out with him. So very blessed. And of course, The Lion King, I watch it every opportunity I get. And of course, Field of Dreams, what can I say? I still think that's one of the greatest baseball movies of all time. Anybody else want to comment on either of those two? And then we'll get parting shots real quickly.
Scott, you need to make the time to watch all the Star Wars movies. Just sit down with your KFC and run through them.
No, I can't have KFC anymore. My doctor has said, no. You need to drop WEIGHT. And I got lectured pretty good last week from him for a good 20-25 minutes about the do's and don'ts of what you put in your mouth. He didn't say what I could say out of my mouth is what you put in your mouth. But then again, the doctor that I have obviously was a physician at the Mayo Clinic, so he's got incredible credibility with me. If you've ever been to the Mayo Clinic, this is one of the best health places. All right, so open and parting shots real quick. You guys have been great. Mark, you have a quick parting shot?
Well, my parting shot is football-wise. I hate to say it. Kind of paying attention to the San Francisco Giants or the San Francisco 49ers and the Jets, and I'm getting exactly what I expected from Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about 40-year-old athletes. And here's a guy who just missed all of last year, and he's trying to come back and be successful as a 40-year-old athlete. And we said it about Scherzer, and I'll say it about anybody who plays any sport at that age. It's very difficult. So it'll be interesting to follow what he does, and it'll be interesting to see what Scherzer decides to do at the end of this season.
Well done, Mark. George, go ahead.
Well, one thing I don't like is the Detroit Tigers have announced that they're going to remove sections of seating behind home plate to create these VIP experience and more money in the pockets of the owner. I don't like it. I think the average fan is going to get screwed. They're not going to be able to sit behind home plate, which, trust me, is the biggest thrill. I'll tell you what, when Tiger Stadium was around, Comerica Park, I mean, there's just nothing to me beats being able to sit behind the plate. But this business of going out there and converting that all into premium, high-priced, high gimmick, if you will, seating, I'm just not in favor of it. And I'm sorry the Tigers are doing that in the next couple of years.
Eric?
I want to go back to your earlier point about Milwaukee and being unable to have an outdoor stadium in baseball. Well, number one, they did when they had the old county stadium that was outside, and the Twins do it now, and it gets plenty cold in Minnesota, believe me. And it's they're able. It can be done. You just kind of struggle in April and the early part of May. But trust me, people come since we're on the subject of James Earl Jones, people will come if you build it. Trust me, there's plenty of people who will watch a cold weather baseball game in Wisconsin. It's happened. They do it all the time in Minnesota. In that ballpark, they draw well at Target Field. It's probably one of the better ballparks I've been to, but it can be done. It's just better that they don't, given how cold it is for the early part of the season here in the Great North.
Fair enough, but you know what, Merrick? I've been to both of them. I've covered Brewers games as well as Packers games over at County Stadium. Not easy. Miller Park, as I'll always call it, is always great, but I see your point now. Since it's a parting shot, totally with what you had to say. Now I have two guys here. We'll see if they want to talk about what took place on Saturday. Okay, so let's set the stage up, Ashton. You know, this is another Texas topic. Do you want to go out there and get a little bit of bragging rights because of a team called the Longhorns?
I mean, as a Longhorns fan, I'm very happy on how that score came out. Michigan's a different team, obviously losing a lot of players. So, I mean, there's a reason it happened. I mean, but I want to say that I think we're getting into that era of early season matchups like this. You know, Texas played Alabama last year, and I mean, you still have a lot of your cupcake games the first couple of weeks, and normally you have to wait 5 or 6 weeks before you get these good matchups. But you have a situation where Texas and Michigan hadn't played since 2003 or 2004, and I think you're seeing a lot of these matchups, especially with conference realignment, that a lot of these early season games you're going to get to see more of.
Okay, well, Trent.
Yeah, I was at that whipping, and it was a dark day in the big house, man. I mean, people don't go into the big house and beat them up like that. And it was varsity versus the JV. Ashton hit it right on the head. I think the surprise was that Michigan didn't lose much on defense and gave up points, and Texas moved the ball like wet paper. I mean, it could have been much worse. I think at half, it really could have been 35-3 instead of 24-3. In fact, the touchdown was called back on the first series. So, missed field goal. I mean, there's some things in there that it could have been a lot worse for Michigan. I think Texas really solidified themselves as a competitor for a national championship. I think that's exciting for Texas football. I think it became a very fast rebuild in Michigan from a national champion to a team that's already probably circling that Ohio State game, thinking that redemption may be coming. One of the surprises I learned was that, Michigan's playing a walk-on. I love the walk-on stories. I think it's fabulous. I love it when a kid, he's a nice athlete, but this is the University of Michigan. I mean, these guys should probably be recruiting 2 of the top 10 players at quarterback every year and signing at least one in the top 10. It's a storied program coming off a national championship year. Where's all the depth at quarterback? I'd expect to see a freshman phenom playing out of Michigan if he's ready, and this is where they're at. So it's a pretty big alarm. But given what's happened in Michigan behind the scenes and some trouble off the field that they've had, I'm sure that's sending some kids and some parents concerned about what the future looks like. And Michigan's no stranger to that NCAA violation. So I think it's probably affecting things.
All right. I don't have a parting shot, but I have a news story that just came through to me, and I'm really glad to mention this one. Jesus Luzardo, a pitcher from Parkland, Florida, has actually been named the Miami Marlins rep nominee for the Roberto Clemente Award. So I just wanted to put that out there. Jesus, I've seen him pitch, and he's really, really, really good. Marlins did pick him up in a trade, I believe, with the Oakland A's. And, Luzardo's a good player. I've seen him pitch. Unfortunately, one of the many injuries that Miami's had this year. So I wish Jesus Luzardo real well. So great show tonight by everybody. With that said, Candy, take over.
I don't normally do this, but I want to talk about Eric's parting shot about the attendance between Milwaukee and Minnesota.
Ooh, look at this.
And I'm going to say this. For those of you that don't know, I grew up in Milwaukee. My dad ushered at County Stadium and then at Miller Park. The reason, not only, yes, we talk about it being cold weather early on and stuff like that, but here's one of the reasons why you build a dome in any place, especially for baseball, as many games as you play. You are always guaranteed a game going to Miller Park or American Family Fields now to see the Milwaukee Brewers. Whereas if it's an outdoor, you aren't always, because there's rain delays, there's rain outs.
Snow.
And at this point, Milwaukee has their attendance this year is 2.2 million, whereas Minnesota, and they're 15th among the league, whereas Minnesota is 23rd at 1.6. So Milwaukee got it right, because I can tell you most games you will see a bunch of busloads of buses out in that parking lot,
Yes.
because they can take trips from all over the state and come in, and they're guaranteed to see a game. Whereas if you're going to Minnesota, you can't always do that. So kudos to the Milwaukee Brewers for doing that, because I know they caught a lot of flack for that in the senators and the congressmen that voted for it. But I want to say that is one of the big reasons why the Milwaukee Brewers, as one of the smallest markets, has the 15th attendance in the league, which I think is phenomenal.
It's pretty good for that market, middle of the pack.
Hey, Eric, let me tell you something, buddy. She got you, period. And it didn't take Mark.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Wait a minute. Let me finish. Let Dad finish. Okay. She got you. It didn't take you and Mark Miraday to go after each other. Candy got you this time.
Well, women are smarter than
All I
men.
have to say. Oh, no, don't there, man. Just own it. I had to own it on another show about a Detroit Red Wings prediction by somebody else.
I'll eat it. I'll eat it.
Yeah, okay. Just own it. That's all. Period. Okay.
I do.
And Candy owns the rest of this show because my voice is starting to run dry. All right. And
That's karma.
Wear and tear like brake pads. All right, Candy, take us home.
Okay, the South Florida Tribune published a book last year called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by Scott Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. It is available on Barnes & Noble. I'm losing my mind tonight.
No.
Barnes &
Your
Noble,
mind instead of your voice.
Amazon, Kindle. It even has a picture, I believe, of young Scott with a Tommy Lasorda. So for all you baseball fans, you got to check out the book. It talks about his 40 plus years in the industry. You have to go get that book. And there's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can get our podcast wherever you get your podcasts, whether it be iHeartRadio, Google, Apple, Spotify, CastBox, Deezer. You check out our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. numerous people write for us. I take pictures. We put all of this up. We have some really great content on there. You can also email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, you can call Scott 954-304-4941. Hit that red subscribe button. Like us, share us all over the place. Monday nights we talk baseball. Tuesday nights we talk football. Wednesday and Thursday nights you never know. Monday nights we also talk hockey. So, Mr. Eric, how can people get a hold of you?
You can follow me on my Twitter at Sports Team News, and be sure to read my blog at bellyupsports.com, where I'm writing about all things baseball.
All right. Mr. Mark, how can we get a hold of you?
You can find us at Original Sports Podcast, or OSP with Eminem, and that is on all major social media apps, as well as you can find us on YouTube. We do our show every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. And we also have an exclusive for Let's Talk Sports, where we talk the week ahead and the previous week, all NFL.
Mr. Leadershipity, Mr. Trent, tell us all about you and your book.
Yeah, Trent Clark. Yep. You can buy my book, Leading Winning Teams, that just came out from Wiley Publishing. That is all the major outlets, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, everywhere. It's on Kindle. Audio's coming out in a month. Super excited about that on Audible. And you can find me at Trent M. Clark or Leadershipity on all the major networks. And our top 2% downloaded show, Winners Find a Way. I host that podcast every Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. Would love to see you there.
And also, Trent now is a regular, just so everybody knows, on the Tuesday night 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. I enjoy his background as a coach, and anytime I can find a coach or somebody that's been at the Major League Baseball level, I think that I don't mind increasing the head count by one when I have somebody that knows the inner workings of how things are done on MLB. So, Trent, don't forget to tell people that you're a permanent member of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, because you do an unbelievable job, pal. I'm really glad to have you. All right,
Thanks,
go
man.
ahead. You're welcome.
Ashton.
Find me at Ashton_Nix or at Peak One Sports on any social media platform, YouTube. And you can listen to our shows on any podcast platform as well.
And also, I should point out, Ashton does an unbelievable job sharing our content, as well as Mark Maraday, but Ashton's done an unbelievable job, especially lately, because we've had a lot of stuff out there, and this guy here does a great job on Twitter. Thanks for what you do, Ashton. Much appreciated. Go ahead.
Mr. George, you have known Scott, the Motor City Madmouth, the longest. Tell us.
Oh, well, 40 plus years. We started the Sports Exchange show, and we're going strong ever since. Covered many games together, covered games by ourselves. We even covered a few games with you, Candy. So that was nice. So you can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com, and also on Twitter at SanGSports99. There's a picture of my book up in the corner there, Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. There's a link to that if you want to find it at Amazon.com, or you can link at the bottom of my column. I write for Motor City Tribune, which is under the South Florida Tribune banner. And looking forward to more great shows, guys. Had a great time tonight. Lots of baseball talk, which I love. I love baseball.
There you have it, all 7 of us. Everybody did a great job tonight, Candy. Thanks again for finishing it off. And all I can tell you is I want to thank every one of my crew members for going out there and giving us a lot of good insights on these topics. I don't normally go this deep on topics, but when you have so much out there that you want to cover, every now and then you're going to stretch it just a little bit. And I think tonight we covered a lot of mileage with what's going on in baseball. There'll be more to come, but tonight I felt like the topics we put out there had to be said before they really got totally out-timed or outdated. So with that said, that concludes this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. On behalf of George Eichhorn, Trent Clark, Eric Katz, Ashton Nix, and Mark Maraday, my name is Scott, and Candy, of course. Remember, don't ever mess with Mama, Eric. I'm telling you, she will spank you like she did tonight.
She put me in the ground. She then put me in the ground.
Yeah, that's all right. She knows how to handle you. That's okay. She's such a nice lady. She can handle me.
There's only two people on the show I won't go after. That would be your wife, and also Trent because he's worn the uniform and's got the ring. So there's no winning there.
There you go. There you go, Trent. How do you like that, man? This guy's giving an endorsement. You earned that one, man. So once again, on behalf of my crew, I want to thank everybody for joining us wherever they were at looking at us. And we'll be back next Monday night for another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Good night, everybody, and have a great week. Bye now.